So first of all, guys, tell me what is the radical up here? The square root of what? X. We want to get that all by itself. We want to isolate that radical in this case, on the left side of the equation. So what am I going to do to this equation to isolate the square root of x? What am I going to do first, Brandon?
Add 10 to each side.
Add 10 to both sides, correct. We always do what? Our order, it's a reverse order of operations when we're solving an equation. We always add or subtract before we do what? Multiply or divide, right? We're going to add 10 to both sides. Okay, and what that does is it gets us 5 times the square root of x equals 10. Now, how do you get rid of multiplying by 5? Divide by 5 on both sides, correct. Divide by 5 on this side, divide by 5 on this side, and now you've isolated the square root of x. What's 10 divided by 5? 2. Now we've done step 1, haven't we? Have we isolated the radical?
Yes.
We've isolated the square root of x. So now that we've isolated the radical, we need to do what to get rid of the square root?
Square.
Square what? Both sides of the equation. So whatever you do on one side, you didn't do on the other. So to get rid of our radical or our square root, we're going to square both sides. That's a square root there, so you know. Okay? So when we square a square root, all it does is remove the radical sign completely. So what are we left with over here on the left side? Just what? Just x. And what's 2 squared?
4.
4, and we have our answer. We've solved it, we've simplified it. Okay, now, step 4 though is what?
Check.
So don't forget to check. Right, here's how we do it. We're going to check now. What we do is we put our answer in for x and put it back into the original equation that we started with. Here we go. So 5 times the square root though of what?
4.
4 minus what?
10.
10 has to equal what?
0.
0. So this side over here, when we simplify it, equals 0, we know we have the right answer for x. So remember, do the square root first. So watch. What's the square root of 4?
2.
So bring that down. So 5 times 2 minus 10 has to equal 0.
Yep.
Now what do we do?
Multiply.
Multiply. What's 5 times 2?
10.
10, right, Brad? Minus 10 has to equal 0. Is 10 minus 10 equal 0?
Yes.
So therefore, because 0 equals 0, we do have the right answer. This solution does work. Okay? Make sense so far? All right, let's go on to example 2. A little different, a little harder, but essentially the same concept. We're still using our same steps. Throughout all of these examples we do, we're using the same steps. Solve and what, class? And check. Good. Don't forget the second part. Okay? 5 times the square root of x minus 3 under the radical plus 6 outside has to equal 21. Okay. 4.
And then we're done with those.
I think, yeah. Okay. Now, with this one, class, are we still going to use the same steps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay? We're going to look to isolate the radical. What's under the radical?
X minus 3.
Don't touch anything under the radical. Don't even think about adding 3 to both sides because it's inside the radical, so don't touch anything inside of it. Okay? So we want to get this all by itself. So how am I going to get the square root of x minus 3 all by itself?
Subtract 6.
Subtract 6 first. Good. We're going to subtract 6 first. By doing that, those cancel and left with 5 times the square root of x minus 3 equals, what's 21 minus 6? 15. Okay? 21 minus 6 is 15. Now, by subtracting 6, we've now got one step closer to isolating the radical. What do we still need to do to both sides to isolate the radical now?
Divide by 5.
Divide by 5, correct. Yes, because we do nothing with the radical x minus 3. So to get rid of multiplying by 5, we divide both sides by 5. Those are going to cancel out. We're left with the square root of x minus 3 equals 15 divided by 5 is 3. Have we now simplified or isolated the radical? Are we done with step 1?
Yeah.
Yes. Now we move down to how do I get rid or eliminate the radical? How do we get rid of square root? We take the square of both sides. We square both sides. Yeah? So we square. Now look at what I'm doing here. I'm going to put the radical in parentheses and square the whole thing. and then I square the 3. Because whenever I do on one side, I do on the other. I have to square both sides of the equation. When I square a square root, or when I square a radical, in this case the square root, what happens to it?
Get rid of the
It removes the radical, right? Okay? In this case, because I'm getting rid of a square root, I square it. If I was getting rid of a cube root, I would cube it, okay? But in this case, we're only dealing with square roots. Okay, so that removes the radical, the square root of the square root, so we're just left with what over here? X minus 3, good. Equals, what's 3 squared? 9, good. And how do I solve this for x? What do I need to do to both sides? Add 3, correct. Add 3 to both sides. And what are we left with as an answer? 12 is my answer. Now, I do not know right now for sure if that's my right answer until I do what? Until I check it, okay? Alright, so I'm going to go over, I don't know if I have enough room over here, I think I do. Here's my check part. Here we go. 5 times the square root of what do I put in here for x?
12.
12 minus 3, then outside the radical plus 6 has to equal positive 21. Remember, do what's under the radical first. What's 12 minus 3?
9.
So this becomes 5 times the square root of 9 plus 6 has to equal 21. Now do under the radical. What's the square root of 9 become?
3.
So this is 5 times what?
3.
3 plus 6 has to equal 21. So what do I do now? Do I multiply or add first?
Multiply.
Multiply. What's 5 times 3?
15.
15 plus 6 is 15 plus 6, 21.
Yeah.
So therefore, because 21 equals 21, I know that I have the right answer, which is 12. And that's my opinion. Thumbs up on these 2 examples so far?
Yep.